GoForThe2.com in with the Week 2 college football predictions. It's going to be a rapid-fire type of video due to the Labor Day weekend. But if you want all the top 25 breakdowns and analysis, tune into College Football Today every 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, SportsGrid.com, SiriusXM Channel 159, Carver and Lisi, Monday through Friday, starting tomorrow, September 5th. It starts at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. So new start time, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every night, Monday through Friday, Sirius Channel 159. And now you could follow me every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Pro Football Today, SportsGrid.com for the video portion, Sirius XM Channel 159 for the audio. We have you covered from start to kickoff. So tune in Monday through Sunday now. I'll be on the network. Will get you prepped and ready for all the top 25 battles and NFL action. Let's jump right into it. Selection for Saturday, there's about 7 of them. We'll go as quick as possible. Alabama laying 7 against Texas. Milroe stepped up. Jalen Milroe, fantastic performance. He stepped up with 5 touchdowns. Alabama, I don't want to say struggle, but in the second quarter was 14-0. Once they found their rhythm, they extended it at halftime to 27-3. Never looked back en route to the 56-3 beatdown of Middle Tennessee State. They are now 47-1 straight up at home since 2016 in Bryant-Denny. Last year they were 7-0, won those games by an average margin of victory of 35.2 points per game. Dominate yet again, laying a 39.5-point number against Middle Tennessee State, a team that actually covered as a 25.5-point dog last year on the road in Miami. So just think about the dominance by the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now here comes Quinn Ewers. He struggled early. Texas did pull away in the fourth quarter. They beat up on Rice. Now they go on the road. They're going to need to step up. They did cover this 20.5-point number last year at home in Austin. They lose 20-19, but 3 critical matchups last year on the road, they did not step up. Texas Tech, they laid 6.5, lost outright 34-31, laid 7 to Oklahoma State, lost by 7 to Spencer Sanders, did not step up against Michael Penix in the bowl game. This is the biggest game of Steve Sarkisian's career potentially when you look at it, and more importantly, when you just look at Quinn Ewers right here in this spot, he needs to step up. Did not play well at home, needs a better performance. But it comes down to the rushing attack, in my opinion, of Alabama. I think they're going to look to run it a little bit more with Jalen Milroe, Jason McClellan, those running backs. I think that's the factor going up and putting pressure on Texas on the perimeter. We talked about Alabama laying short numbers at home. Just doesn't happen. 2019, they laid 5.5, 6 to Joe Burrow. They lost 46-41. The following year, they laid 5 to Georgia. They dominate that ball game in the second half, 41-21. Outside of that, Alabama at home is laying double digits to every team potentially in the SEC and non-conference. You can go back to the days of Chad Kelly. They laid 8.5, 9 when they got knocked off in that ball game. So the books and just the FPI believes that Texas should be live in this matchup. I know they have the passing attack of Xavier Worthy there. They have some playmakers, but it comes down to the offensive defensive lines for me. That's where Alabama's going to win this game. If they can run it, they should be able to cover this number fairly easy. I'm going to lay it with Alabama at home. I think they moved to 48-1 straight up since 2016. They get a double-digit win over Texas in this ball game. Talk about a team that lost last week, Texas Tech. They now face off against Oregon. Bo Nix stepped up. Dynamic performance. They put up 80 points on Portland State. He completes 85% of his passes, 287, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. You look at Texas Tech. They had a 17-3 first half lead. Can't run the football or make halftime adjustments. Tyler Shuck does throw for over 300, but the offensive rushing attack only averaged 3.6 yards per carry with Taj Brooks. I think it changes in this matchup coming at home. They're a much better home team last year, 6-1 at home in Lubbock. They won those games against FBS opponents by an average margin of victory of 12.6 points per game. You look at the flip side for Oregon. Since 2016-2017, they are just 20-24 on the road or on a neutral field. I know Bo Nix is a Heisman contender, but going into Lubbock, I think it's a different animal. And I think Texas Tech does step up, especially with the rushing attack. I think that's the key to the success of the Red Raiders in this ballgame. We talked about it in terms of the breakdown last week. I'm going back to the well in terms of how Texas Tech evolved from an offensive line perspective. First 6 games of the regular season, averaged 53.6 pass attempts per game. Last 7 games, it was 37.8. They only rushed for 3.4, 3.5 yards per carry in that loss to Wyoming. They need a better effort. I think they get it done. I think they're more opportunistic and do get the outright win over the Ducks in this ball game as a 6.5-point underdog. Another ball game in terms of Utah going on the road to Baylor. Baylor did not look good. They allowed TJ Finley to step up and abuse their secondary. I think it changes this week. Utah potentially goes back to Cam Rising, but another team in terms of Pac-12 play that is just 13-12 the last 4 seasons dating back to 2019 on the road or on a neutral field. I think they still potentially can win this ball game, but I think Baylor can be live in this ball matchup. They only rushed for 108 yards on the ground. Dominic Richardson, the Oklahoma State transfer, did get 79 yards on the ground. Blake Shapen played okay, a little inconsistent in critical spots in the second half. Third down conversions were non-existent. They only converted around 38% in that loss to Texas State, but front seven still played well, especially in run support. They gave up $143 on the ground, 3.6 yards per rush, and I think that's where Baylor potentially can keep this game close. Even though Cam Rising potentially is back, I think Baylor is live as an underdog playing in Waco. Keep in mind as well, this is a team last year that almost knocked off TCU as an underdog as well. TCU needed a field goal in that ball game with no time left to knock off the Bears. Aranda will have them dialed in, and I like Baylor to be a live dog in this matchup. Air Force on the road, Air Force laying 14.5 against Sam Houston State. Sam Houston State covered against BYU. They lost 14-0. They held BYU to a $112 on the ground. But on the flip side, you have one of the most prolific triple option attacks in all of college football. They were the number 1 ranked rushing offense last year. This year, against a win against Robert Morris, they rushed for 374 yards on the ground, held Robert Morris to only 43 yards in terms of the rushing attack. This is a tough ask for Sam Houston State. I know they got the cover and played very well against BYU, but I think Air Force is way too much. I think they are able to score at will. It might be close for a quarter, but in the second half, it is all Falcons. I think they cover this number fairly easy. I think they win it anywhere from 24 to 28 points against Sam Houston State in that matchup. Miami taking on Texas A&M. Texas A&M struggled in terms of Connor Weigman. He pulled out with a 5-touchdown performance against, New Mexico State, covered the 39.5-point number. On the flip side, Miami does win and cover at home against Gabbard and Miami of Ohio. What's the change from what I saw in terms of the week 1 ball game? Miami was able to run the football effectively. That's why you got Mario Cristobal there. They pounded the rock for 250 yards on the ground. Why is that important? Because in their 7 losses last year, Miami only averaged 98.3 rushing yards per game. When you can't run the football effectively, you're put into long third down conversions. That puts the pressure on Tyler Van Dyke and the offensive line, puts you into critical situations. If you can't convert and are inconsistent, you're not going to win ball games, especially now with the clock rules. Connor Weigman moving on the road in a big spot, even though he stepped up at home. This is a different animal. The heat of South Beach can be a factor as well, even though they're coming from Texas. I like Miami catching the 4.5 points. Think they strike the upset. We also talk about Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal was not brought in to Miami for them to go 5-7. I know they struggled last year, but this is a different season. He had the ability to weed out the players that fit, the players that don't fit, and more importantly, I'm expecting a bounce back in terms of the offensive defensive line play by the Hurricanes this year. That's what Mario Cristobal brings. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Catching only 4.5, I think they strike the upset over Jimbo. Now, Jimbo's been dominant statistically against non-conference opponents, 17-3 straight up, dating back to 2018. That is an 850 winning percentage, but it comes more to Connor Weigman in a big spot. I believe more in Tyler Van Dyke and the Hurricanes playing at home than I do Weigman on the road, and that's why I'm picking the Hurricanes in this matchup. Ole Miss on the road against Tulane. Intriguing battle. Tulane does get the victory as a 6.5-point favorite. Michael Pratt and the Green Wave stepped up, dominates South Alabama. That was a hot play by a lot of people. Loved the South Alabama Jaguars in that matchup. Tulane started fast. Pratt with over 250 yards through the air. Also made some plays with his legs. But they're going up against a prolific offense in Ole Miss that put up 524 through the air with Jackson Dart and rushed for 143 yards on the ground. They put up over 600 yards of total offense en route to the 73-7 beatdown of Mercer. Junkins and the rushing attack only rushed for $143, but I think they are able to run it at will, especially on the edge against Tulane in this ballgame. Jackson Dart last week, 334 and 4 touchdowns. To me, that's the difference. You have a mobile quarterback, you have the speed of Junkins, you have a front seven that's very athletic and can run sideline to sideline. I think they forced Tulane to work down the field. I think they're able to score quickly and force Tulane in terms of, even though they're playing at home, in terms of a catch-up type of scenario. I like Ole Miss laying the number. So those are the picks. Alabama, Texas Tech, we have Baylor, we have Air Force, Miami, and Ole Miss for your Week 2 picks. Like I said, if you want all the breakdowns, tune into College Football Today, tune into Pro Football Today, and Carver and Lisi, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Go For The Two. Have a great week, everyone.